I'd like to welcome Connor back. We're going to talk about some stuff. We've already started a conversation and we decided just to go ahead and start having the conversation. We're going to go back to what we talked about in Minnesota. My view in Minnesota at this point with all the video and everything else, we'll get in more into the video later. And this is where Connor and I disagree, and we're going to walk through it. I feel like as far as what's happening in Minnesota is that there is a federal law that puts ICE agents on the ground to enforce federal law. You have protesters that are saying, we in a civil society do not feel like that the agents have been demonized. I think, can we at least agree, Connor, that the agents have been demonized from people on the left for doing their job as civil servants? Can you say that?
To a degree, I would concur that the same stance that was taken during like BLM, when it was the defund the police and that whole uproar that got more than, in my opinion, it should have been. The example of the couple bad eggs, and the aspect of bad examples being applied to an entire situation. I'm sure that there are thousands of ICE agents doing exactly their job respectfully and to the T that it is supposed to have been done. But I also feel that there are examples that can be shown where that is not the case.
So what I'm saying is, do you think when the left calls them the Gestapo and they are the word that was used by the congressman we're gonna talk about was disappearing people, is like what you're saying to me, you're creating an environment that says these people are abducting people without cause, and that is not true.
I disagree.
Okay, so tell me, in federal code, if you're here illegally and you were picked up and detained for that, why is that disappearing people?
No, that's absolutely not disappearing people. If you are here illegally, you are found to be here illegally through proper means of, arrest, detainment, whatever, like justifiable suspicion, whatever the federal verbiage is. And it's, yep, this dude's illegal. We are going to put him in a detention center and we are going to deport him. Absolutely, that is well within federal code, but that's not.
So how is that not being done? Give me an example.
So I think, if I may, I think that where we are right now, when we look at what's happening in Minneapolis, when we look at what's happening throughout the nation in regards to the protests and the interference being run by individuals on the left against ICE operations in various towns, cities, and all that, we are looking at it from the perspective of the boots on the ground situation, the people in that town. And for me, where the conversation becomes very difficult is that, like, we're looking at Minneapolis, sorry. We're looking at Minneapolis as if it happened out of nowhere, as if this was just a random, what was it, Saturday that happened? But that this is just popped up out of nowhere. There was no pretext, no preamble to any of this.
You're talking about the violent encounter that resulted in that lady's death.
Correct.
No, I'd say there were forces on both sides that carried us to that point. The forces.
Well, and I
will talk about the forces on the left that put us in that position. You talk about the forces on the right.
So where I genuinely feel for ICE officers, Customs and Border Patrol, National Guard, any of these, essentially just people like you and me doing their job, where I genuinely feel for them is that, in my opinion, they're being used as a pawn in a bigger political tete-a-tete struggle, back and forth, whatever you want to call it. You look at, again, so it's what happened in Minneapolis, I feel, is being presented as this happened out of nowhere. She was just getting involved, blah, 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 completely disregarding the buildup that got us here, the buildup over the last 10 months of actions taken by the administration that have added, bits and pieces to this fuel to this fire, waiting for these matches.
So give me an example of what the administration has done. So just give me an example of like, what are they doing other than enforcing the law?
Well, they're defying judges. We had the incident back in April, May, June, somewhere there, where 273 detainees were sent out of the country on C-130s directly while a federal judge was saying, hey, bring them back. Do not send them out. I am blocking this until we look into it further. And the federal government set them out anyway. Come to find out, 75% of the people on that plane didn't have a violent criminal charge or a criminal charge in the US at all. You look at
well, hold on. All right, so let's just talk about that incident. So to me, that backs up the fact of there are judicial remedies to deal with what's going on with ICE. Like if you have an issue, there is a judicial remedy. And so like from my standpoint, I know we've gone back and forth on legal, illegal, and everything else, but like my question is, okay, they didn't have a violent history, but where were they picked up at? And then the second question would be, were they here illegally?
Sure, but that's not the point of that example. What I'm saying is that, because yes, you're absolutely right. We can look at the legality of them being here. There have been instances of US citizens being picked up. We can look at that. We're
talking about that isolated incident. So tell me.
That's my point. Is it's not like when you get all the way to Minneapolis, it's no longer an isolated incident because it is. But
again, what you're doing is you're saying this was a bad event. So let's look at the bad event and say why it was a bad event from the left.
But it's not the event that I'm talking about. I'm saying that the pattern of behavior from the administration has culminated in the left.
The event is relevant if we're going to use that as an example of why people are protesting and everything else. Let's see if that event is truthfully what you say it is. If it is, then okay, that's a valid point.
So the part of that event that's the relevancy to the protesting is people were being deported or detained and then shipped out of the country legally, illegally, that was the thing. But the event was a federal judge said, hey, stop, bring those people back. We do not know the validity of all of these charges. And the administration said, nope, they're gone. Can't bring them back. Nothing we can do about it. And those people sat outside the country for days and weeks because the administration directly violated a federal judge's ruling to bring them back. That's the issue.
That is based on what though?
Based on what happened.
But you can say, okay, that was illegal. They shouldn't have done that. That's not how the judicial system works. The final authority is going to be the Supreme Court. And I think that's the whole point. The whole point is there are judicial remedies. If the administration makes a mistake, if you're saying this is a mistake by the administration, my question is where—
I'm saying it's a direct ignoring of a federal judge's indictment or injunction.
Okay, but that's not the whole story. The whole story is that like you cannot— again, you can argue whether you have venue or anything else, but what you're saying is that there's an example of something that was done wrong based on your opinion, and because of that, a judge said you can't do that, and you're saying that the administration did it anyway. My question to you is, where are those 270 people now?
I think a good chunk of them eventually got brought back.
Okay. So what you're saying is there is a way, despite all the scare tactics, people are being disappeared and everything else. If a federal judge says, I want these people back, there is a judicial remedy to get those people back. Look at the guy that was sent to Venezuela, was it El Salvador or Venezuela? I'll never pronounce his name.
Abrego Garcia?
Yes.
Honestly, I don't know. He got
anyway. Well, whatever. It was El Salvador. It wasn't Venezuela. It was El Salvador because he was MS-13. But anyway, again,
was he MS-13?
100% was MS-13.
Okay.
You can put money on that based on professionals that identify these people on a consistent basis.
Okay.
So again, there's a judicial remedy. So what in that, because that's one of the things that we talked about back in 1963, you can bring up that as like, this is a protest. The protest in 63 in Alabama and what all happened there. And I agree that that was a protest. We're talking about civil society. People come in and protest things and they say, hey, this isn't right. So this is what we're going to do from a judicial remedy. From a like, hey, we're not getting relief. This needs to happen. A protest needs to happen. In 1963, there was a violation. The states were violating what the federal government said. So using that as an example, my feeling on all this is, from a protest standpoint, you have people sharing stories of like, well, this is what they're doing. We have to do this. They're making it into a fire. They're yelling fire, and they're yelling fire with inaccuracies. For example, these guys are not disappearing people. They are not.
There have been multiple people within the ICE detention center system where they track detainees whose family cannot find their names. Their names disappear from the records. They don't have any way to find where they're at. They cannot track.
Okay, so let's use that as an example. If you're here illegally and you don't have proper identification, is it possible maybe the people that they can't find in there are because they have assumed a different identity and they've been logged in as something else?
Sure, that's absolutely possible. Is it possible that they just are being taken out of the system?
So you're saying
I'm saying their names are being removed.
No, you were saying that, but that is not factual. It's not. It is. You are saying you have a family member that is coming in there and saying, I'm looking for this family member. They were picked up by ICE. I cannot find their name.
I'm saying that there are family members who said, hey, I found my person. They say that they're in Texas. And then I went to look again, and now their name is gone. Okay. And we don't know where they are. So their name was in the system, and now it is gone. And that has been documented as happening.
From who? Who documented that?
Well, so it's the claim of the individual saying, I can't find my family members.
Okay. And what judicial remedies have been taken to get that cleaned up?
I don't know.
And see, so what I'm saying, I'm not saying that when you have that mass of a situation, things happen. But my question is, in a civil society, my feeling on what happened in Minneapolis is you have agents that are demonized. You have someone who is trying to do the right thing and has been trained to do the right thing by people who are not doing the right thing, in my opinion, because they are calling these ICE agents fascist. I can't ever say the word right. They're calling them Hitler. They're calling them all these different people. They're saying they're abducting them. So like they're creating a problem. And then when somebody gets killed, they're like, well, the agents shouldn't have done this. And I think the problem, in my opinion, is protests are a necessary. If you look through our history, protests have been part of what our history is as a country. My question that we talked about was in 1963 in Alabama, that is different than what we're experiencing now, in my opinion. I'm not saying it is. I don't have it. All I can say is I feel like the United States said with this presidential election, he won the popular vote. He won the electoral vote. Without exception, more than 60% of it said, fix immigration and close the southern border. That was the 60%. And so from my standpoint, he has delivered on that promise. If you don't like that promise, then find somebody to run against him to make it stop, because he is following what the law says. People might not like the way the law is being implemented, but there's nobody out there. Like, they have these scare things of like, well, this person disappeared. But then even with what you just gave me was an example of a court that said, we think that you've gone too far and it's corrected. Yes, there was an inconvenience there where 270 people were removed from the country, but based on what you're telling me, they're back, or whatever the problem was with that, it is fixed. But again, like we've talked about before, when you have an enormous problem, it's like on a sinking ship, you're probably going to throw stuff off that you'll think like, hey, I should have probably kept that. But at that point, you're thinking like, hey, I just want to survive this. And so I'm trying to relieve weight or whatever else. And I think we both agree immigration is a huge problem. The number of people in this country, that is a problem. It is.
It needs reform. Yeah.
But it's a problem because you look at, if you can't say,
I don't see immigration as a problem. I see the systems we have in place for accessible immigration as broken and needing reform.
Okay. So
I'm a proponent of bringing immigrants in. I think immigration built this country.
But when you screw something up that bad, and it is where it is, and I'm not just saying the previous administration I'm just saying it hasn't been fixed. You have a huge problem. If you don't believe there's a huge problem, look at the amount of debt or look at the amount of money that's been pissed away in Minnesota for programs that don't work. That is an immigrant population. It is 100%. Like you can look at that and go, hey, this is and so from my standpoint, why aren't we talking about I think about this from a law enforcement standpoint. I remember a long time ago, this car that had all kinds of violations on it went by with their music thumping. And there was a guy that was a veteran, and he said, that is a missile lock. And I was like, what does that mean? He was like, it's like they want to get caught. And when he pulled him over, he had all these violations on the car. He wasn't licensed. So why would you want to draw attention to that? Because you're violating law. And so like from my standpoint, let's talk about the fact that the reason the federal government is in Minnesota is because the state of Minnesota has failed miserably in using federal funds properly. I'm not going to go with the far right talking points of like, well, they did this for votes or they did this for anything else. I think both of us are from a standpoint of, if it works, it's performance based. And I would say, is it safe to say, from your opinion, the system that was created, the safety net that was created in Minnesota, and the way those funds were distributed and everything else, and the amount of fraud that's involved, is that not a failure?
It's a failure for security. Yes.
For security from what? Security
in not in the sense of like locks and bars or whatever, but security in the sense of like a secure process that cannot be manipulated. Because at the end of the day, the programs work when the funding is used the right way with people with good intentions. These aid programs do work. I
don't disagree, and that's what bothers me about from the left standpoint. Why aren't more people saying, I have got needy people in my community that didn't get aid because I've got somebody in Minnesota that made several $100,000, even millions of dollars that they pocketed. Where are the name calling or anything else when it comes to that?
Well, I think that it's there. I think it's just one of those situations where.
Okay, so while we're talking, I want you to find me one Democrat that's come out and said the state of Minnesota has done a horrible job and they need to be held accountable. That's a tough ask. So anyway, but I feel like you're smart enough to find that out. So like I said, I think one of the things that we were talking about before that I think is very important as we talk about, and you can as you're researching this, I just want to talk about the ICE incident in Minnesota. Is your viewpoint is she's parked in the middle of the road and she wasn't interfering with the ICE operation and all this other stuff. But like from my standpoint,
well, hold on, to clarify that, my stance is that she was parked illegally, so there is justification for questions to be asked. My stance is she was not doing anything that deserved to be shot in the face.
No, she did that after she tried to run over the officer, which is what the video showed.
I disagree.
But you weren't the one holding the cell phone that got hit by the car either.
He changed hands.
He what?
He changed hands. If you watch the video from his perspective, he was holding the phone in his right hand as he's circling around the back of the car. As he's coming up to the driver's side, he swaps to his left so that he has his gun hand free coming around the front of the vehicle.
So what you're saying is that it's a good chance again, I think you know who I thought did the best job of describing this is Stephen Smith, the guy that's on ESPN. And one of the things that he said we can't vilify either one of these people because neither one of them wished this would have happened. I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting. And he said he doesn't believe the ICE agent, had any ill intent in what they did. It wasn't how they woke up and expected to start that morning. But at the end of the day, one of the things that he did say is like these protests, and that's where I'm at, is like you cannot in a civil society continue to do things and go after people doing their job and say it is okay that I did that because I was outside of what people were making decisions based on what the video show of like, well, she wasn't actually inside the perimeter or anything else, but like having never been part of a situation like that, I feel like that is like me saying, going into the operating room and saying, did you think about, I read on the internet last night, I think you should do this and clamp this off. And the doctor is like, I appreciate your input, but like you need to back up. And so like in this situation, I do think that like she didn't attract their attention. Like from my standpoint, what the video shows, this is just my opinion. The video shows is an agent is just documenting, hey, this person is interfering with what we're doing. The agent that died, because you hear the victim's wife sitting there saying like, just do this, you can find me later. Yeah, but I'm just saying like he is not doing any enforcement action. He's not. He's just videoing it, which to me, that's what an observer does. They because they have been demonized. He's like, let me show you what we deal with every day. And he's going around the car. This is my opinion based on. And then the other agents come up and are like, she's got to go. We can't get through. I'm assuming because they get out of their car and again, we can break it down, but like from my standpoint, without going like piece by piece by piece, the issue is like he is being an observer and then he transitions when he views her as a threat, and that's when he engaged her and ultimately ended up shooting her. So
well, and that's and I think that this,
did you find anything online, by the way?
Let's see here. I don't
want to get too far off.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. There have been people, yes, short answer is yes. There were people at various levels, the AG, Keith Ellison, back in 2019, I think he was the state AG, maybe, I don't remember.
In 2019, he said it was a problem.
So that's okay. So if we're, real quick on that one, like this is also the aspect of where I think is important for like the conversations that you and I are trying to demonstrate and have is these, again, it's my premise with, Minneapolis is a result of the last 10 months of activities. When you look at Minnesota, there's this, from the beginning, I've looked at presenting the proper narrative in terms of how we have a discussion. So when you look at Minnesota, for instance, yes, there's absolutely fraud. It is absolutely a problem. There have been, I think, confirmed, the high end estimate is like 9 billion coming from conservative side of things. Confirmed and like tracked, we're sitting at about $1 billion over an extended period of time. That includes mismanagement of PPP loans from back in 2019 when the rules around their usage were lessened. That was a Trump era change, but that was back in 2019. You do have your frauds with from Biden era lessening of restrictions and stuff like that. So it goes through at least 2 administrations.
I mean, let's talk about that real quick. So I understand what you're saying. So what I hear you saying is, I hear you say in 2019, the Attorney General says we have a problem with fraud, correct?
That's what it seems to be.
Yeah, and that's during the Trump administration. Tell me again what happened in the Biden administration.
So
walking through this.
So throughout these, so we've got 2019. There were people I think it was this AG. Again, I'm rough looking at the
He's still, I
timeline.
mean, he's been AG since, I mean,
Keith Ellison.
yes, he's
Okay.
still the AG.
So he's sitting here going, in 2019, his office prosecuted and convicted over 300 people for Medicaid fraud. So he was aware of stuff going on back then. In 2022, Feeding Our Future, which was the big one, like that's the one that really like kicked it. That was a multi-year investigation, from what I understand, by the U.S. Attorney and the FBI. That involved $250 million in stolen funds from a child nutrition program. That was some white lady whose name I forget, was like
And
the
that
head.
was from when did that happen?
2022. This was Feeding Our Future.
So 2019, you have, and I just confirmed, he's been Attorney General since 2019, still
Gotcha.
sitting. But he says there's a problem, correct?
Yes. Or
Okay.
he does an investigation of 300 or so people in 2019.
Yes. And so he says it's a problem. 3 years later, we're still saying it's a problem. We're at 200.
3 years later, we have convictions.
Okay. For those 350 people.
No, for different people, for Feeding Our Future, federal and state corruption case, federal and state cooperation.
So let's just give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Like, we see that there's a problem.
Yes.
And my question is, what did the state of Minnesota do from 2019 to where we are right now to fix the problem of fraud? Because it seems like it's exploded since then, since 19. Because I think that's what's important. What's important is people want to look at, I feel like people on the left want to look at it as like, hey, somebody's just picking on Minnesota because of this, this, and this. And it's
I think Minnesota is probably one of the worst examples of this situation.
But
so it's getting the attention.
My point is, and here's the connection. Because we talked about this with Rico on protests and stuff like that. But like, this is a little bit different, but it's similar. And it's similar from a standpoint of the reason federal agents are in Minnesota is because it appears that there is a large immigrant population, and a lot of these immigrants receive benefits through the fraud. And so from my standpoint, it is not just like a randomizer that said, hey, let's go to Minnesota. Minnesota's doing everything good. We're just going up there because we're trying to make a point. Because I think that is kind of what Governor Walz has said, and other people have said, is like, you're just picking on Minnesota. No, you have a problem. You identified the problem back in 2019. You haven't fixed the problem. It continues to be a problem. And now the federal government gets involved, and it is ramping up bigger and bigger. And so from my standpoint, and maybe you don't agree, but like, do you think that we just randomly selected DHS is like, hey, let's go to Minnesota? Or is it like an outcry from the population of like, there's a lot of money missing, we probably need to deal with this?
I think both of those are mildly inaccurate. And I'll
how so?
Well, so I'll frame it in this.
Do the first one first. What first one is inaccurate?
Well, so go through your two, because I was pulling up a thing while you were talking, so I was trying to go. So your 2 points are.
So I think it's safe to say that the state of Minnesota has failed in dealing with the fraud that's up there, and it's not random from a standpoint of law enforcement going up there en masse from DHS to deal with the fraud, because I feel like what you're going to find is after the fact is that the federal government's concern in this whole situation is that this money, Somalia is not a friendly country. There's a lot of terrorism going on in Africa. We have special operations and other troops deployed to that area. So I feel like it's almost like a counterterrorism mission. And I think one of the things that I look at is that that's what they're working towards. But again, because of the civil unrest caused by, in my opinion, protesters and people on the left saying, there's nothing to see here. Well, no, there is a ton to see here. you are pissing away money that could be used. The programs that you want, that the social programs that the left is constantly saying this is what we need, you've pissed away the money. And now, like, to me, it's almost like mama has told you what the rules are. Mama has not fixed it. Daddy's coming home and daddy's coming in there and taking care of business. And so it's not random that these agents are there, because there's a nexus of criminal activity.
So I agree that it is not random. I agree that from all reports, it sounds like the state of Minnesota was not acting quickly or efficiently enough. Where I would disagree in the form of a question to you as the law enforcement expertise in this conversation, in this friendship, is that when you're so you're trying to do a drug bust, right? The end result that people see is you and your fellow law enforcement officers made, 10 high profile arrests. You got 20 tons of, or 20 kilos of cocaine off the streets. We see the end result of this big pop of, wow, look what you guys did.
Okay.
What led up to that? Because my guess is that it was not an investigation you started 1 week prior. There was probably a lot of legwork that got you to that conclusion, correct?
Okay. All right.
So in this instance, we're looking at what's going on in Minnesota. Okay. And I'm agreeing that the fraud is bad. I'm agreeing that they probably could have done more earlier on to get involved. I'm agreeing that it is not random that these ICE officers have shown up now to start making arrests or more arrests. It's getting federal attention, because it's a good talking point for Trump and his administration to go after walls. This is an easy layup for them in terms of just getting some of that, like, talking point, news, yada 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 stuff.
It's not.
It gets him good headlines. Like, that's a whole different part of it that's irrelevant to my point. But it's when you look at the series of events, you've got 2019. You've got 2022. They concluded an investigation into feeding our future and made arrests in that. I want to say up to this point, up until this popped off, 93 people had been arrested in association with these fraud schemes. So over the course of 2019, 2022, 2024, 2025, investigations, stuff was happening. It wasn't just nothing. There were investigations, there were arrests, there were convictions, there were all of this. And now it's culminating because it's getting more attention, it's getting more involvement, it's getting more, it's seeming bigger and like it just suddenly happened, when I think it's fair to look at it and go, has enough been done? Probably not.
All right, so here's my question, and maybe you can answer this. My personal opinion is that the previous administration and the state of Minnesota has turned a blind eye to what the activities of people in the Somalian population. And because of that, they have allowed things, because I've been reading a book lately that was written by a female, and I'll give you her exact name, but basically she is a moderate Muslim. And one of the things that she said is that the left and the Muslim Brotherhood and others have gotten together and have scared people from saying this is the way it is, because it's on our side. I'll tell you this, it's the Israeli thing. Nobody wants to say anything about, like, God forbid you say something about Israel. Like, I don't.
Yeah, you're deemed to be an anti-Semite if you say anything against Israel.
I think it is safe to say that from a Muslim standpoint, Somalia is a predominantly Muslim country. The people in Somalia or in Minnesota, it is a predominantly Muslim group of people. I feel like from the Somalian population, I think if you broke down what their decisions were, it would be predominantly Muslim. That isn't like, hey, Muslim bashing or anything else. It is, though, when you create an environment where you're like, hey, these people are protected because they're Muslim, because I don't want to be accused of Islamophobia. doesn't that, like, the fact, like, on both sides, does that not create part of the problem? In my opinion, it does.
Absolutely. Well, and I would say,
give you, if you give me just a second, you keep
Yeah,
going. I'm gonna give you this lady's name.
well,
And
so I would say to that
she's
exact point
moderate.
that you
She's
made,
extremely moderate, and I feel like she was pretty fair about it. The problem is that, and that's one of the things she pointed out in her book, is like, hey, they have made it so, like, they don't even admit that like, they don't want people, like, during the Biden administration and during the Obama administration, they did not want to refer to people that cited Islam as the reason for their negative actions, their terrorist actions. They said, you cannot use that word. They are radical. They are radical something. Like, you couldn't say they're radical Muslims. You couldn't say they were Islam. They wanted to keep those words out of there. And I think one of the problems with that is it creates an environment where people are afraid, sort of like the transgender and everything else, is we're taking things off the table. And if you say anything, it is like, oh, you can't say that. Well, let's just deal with the facts. If the facts are there, then the facts say this is what it is. Let me keep going with what you're going to say in reaction.
I think to your point just now that there has been, and it's been pushed from my side, there has been a pendulum where there is such a worry about being accused of being homophobic, transphobic, racist, anti-Semitic, anti-Muslim, or Islamophobic, that in investigations and in these moments, like, people take more time to make sure that all their T's are dotted, all their T's are crossed, all their I's are dotted.
I got you.
Because God forbid you arrest someone, you're like, oh, well, it's because he was black. It's like, well,
Yeah,
no, not necessarily.
So real quick, not to interrupt you, but the name of the book is called The Woke Army, and it's Azra, and I'm probably masking her name, and I apologize for it. It's Azra Nomani. And it is a book, and it's a great book. And one of the things she talks about is, I feel like she is more like you from a standpoint of, like, hey, let's have a honest conversation. Let's not sit there. Let's admit that people on the side of Islam are saying, like, hey, you need to, there are people that interpret Islam in a strict sense. And some of the countries that are like that, like Iran and other countries, they are so strict in their interpretation, they do suppress the will of women. They do, and all that. And that's what I struggle with the most, is that people on the left will not say that's wrong. Like, you can't pick, for me, and that's the example of, from my standpoint, is the story that I had from Fox News, and I'll give you the guy's name, is that this guy comes and says that
what's the headline of that news article?
I'm trying hold on. It was Fox News, and the guy went in there and said that it is the same, that what we did is the same as what they no, I take that back. I apologize. I was 100% wrong. It is not. It is the Democratic National Committee chair compares U.S. to Iran. This guy's name is DNC Chair Ken Martin, compared the U.S. to Iran in several social media posts Sunday, claiming both countries are guilty of killing protesters. That is the guy that is the face of the Democratic Party as it relates to stuff that you're running on. His name is Ken Martin.
Yeah, no, I got that. Where was the article?
He made the post. You can go to that, but the article was on Fox News. Democratic Committee chair compares U.S. to Iran, claims both are killing protesters. And this is what he said. He said he made his first comparison on X, expressing support for both protesters in the U.S. and Iran for rising up against systems that wield violence without accountability. And my problem with that is, there is accountability. You just described the accountability. You felt like the administration went too far. A federal judge agreed with it, and they said those 275 people came back. So I have a problem with that. I have a problem with somebody that's in charge of the Democratic Party saying, hey, I just want to let you know that these are the same. They're not the same. Iran is an oppressive regime that kills homosexuals. There's no freedom in Iran. That's why these people are protesting. And to compare freedom protesters to a group of people that are protesting what they believe is going wrong in a civil society that gives you other options besides protesting, you stick yourself in the middle of an ICE operation. Granted, I defer to the part of, from my standpoint, what happened in that ICE raid was somebody that was pushed towards it, who probably, if they had it, obviously if they had it to do over, they would have gone home to their children. But that isn't going to happen. But again, you've got people stirring people up on both sides with stuff that's not accurate. And that's my problem. My problem is you have the DNC chairman saying that these are the same. And there's nothing in it, unless you can tell me something that you think is the same. Is there anything on your side that says, hey, these protests are similar? And this is what let me give you this last quote is before you answer. He says, quote, from Tehran to my birthplace of Minnesota, people are rising up against systems that wield violence without accountability. In Iran, brave protesters confront a far-right theocratic regime. Far-right, not...
I mean, it is right in the sense of conservative. Like, it is very conservative over there. Not like our conservative, but like it's...
But I mean, that's to me... I don't disagree, but they're the far right over there are people that are executing and saying like, hey, you're going to follow Muslim law, Sharia law, and all those different things. And those are the very people that your side, I feel like on the right side, on the side of the right, we are willing to listen to moderate Muslims and people that aren't like, flying into towers and stuff like that and creating havoc like that. But again, I think it's really, I just wonder, but fairness, let's talk about fairness. So fairness is, for me, it's also having the honest conversation of, have we given kind of like a blind hand to some of the stuff Israel's done? Yes. But again, at least the right admits that. I don't think the left admits like, hey, we are one with a group of people who deny September 11th happened. We have, all the different
left
things.
Deny that September 11th happened?
Say again?
Does the left deny that September 11th happened?
No, I said that you associate with people that say that.
Okay. And the right associates with people that say the Holocaust didn't happen.
Okay, but what I'm saying
is, so this is my thing. So like where I think a lot of times these conversations
I feel like both sides say the Holocaust didn't happen.
There are lunatics out there that say it didn't happen.
But what I'm saying is that some of the very people that were involved in Somalia, the very people that are funding things, CARE and all these different Muslim organizations, like from my standpoint, these Muslim organizations are dealing more with the left. You look at Omar, she's from Minnesota, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and who funded her? It was funded by the group that has ties to the terrorists from September 11th. So
do we know that for certain?
That's what that girl wrote in her book. I mean, that's her research, and she's a Wall Street Journal investigative reporter that clearly showed connections between I can't remember the exact name of it. I think it's Muslim Brotherhood, but that the people that started all that is connected. One of the hijackers was connected to that mosque and to that group of people.
So where I think unfortunately a lot of these types of conversations can devolve quickly is when you are in a situation that you're trying to make that very bad. Like, I'm not going to argue that you are incorrect because I don't know, but I'm going to take your word for it on this one, that the organization that funded Omar's campaign or contributed to Omar's campaign also has contributed to other stuff that we would be very against, like terrorist cells or terrorist organizations.
I'm not trying to say the left is the only one that has connections with people that they would prefer not to. What I'm saying is it's hypocritical to, in my opinion, to say just in the context of these protests in Iran and the protests in Minneapolis are the same. That is, to me, very hypocritical from the DNC chair, when that is so far, for me, and maybe you're going to tell me that's not far removed from reality, but like for me, that is pretty far removed from reality. There is no connection whatsoever. You have a free society in the United States of America where you can choose who your leaders are. You might disagree with, like, hey, I didn't select that one, but like, you know, a large percentage did select them. If you say a year into Donald Trump's his term, you say, I don't like it, go to the midterm and elect somebody that keeps him from doing it. That's the thing is, and I think it's on both sides. The problem is I feel like the left is more inclined to like try to like go in and try to interrupt things and protest and not have voices be heard. And I mean, I hate to say it, but like, who, in my opinion, people can say anything that they want, but I feel like when you look at Charlie Kirk and you look at his life, he was engaging people. You might not like the way he did it,
sure,
but he did engage with people. And what happened? He got killed for it, you know. And I'm not blaming that on the left, but there are a lot of people on the left that like, from my standpoint, the stand that they took of like attacking a dead man and attacking his.
But there have been, like, just using that, there have been plenty of people on the right who have said Renee Good got exactly what she deserved.
I don't disagree.
Like,
that is to me 100%. You can take that. It is never a good thing when somebody loses their life. I do not feel like there is any part of that lady that thought like, hey, I'm doing the wrong thing. I think she was genuine in what she was trying to get done. My problem is the leadership of the left, as indicated by what this DNC chair says, has created an environment where a civil society is not, to me, a civil society does not benefit the left. A civil society, which is why I feel like all this chaos is created. And that's a blanket statement, but give me an example of where the left has said like, hey, we like in this situation, what is the end game in Minnesota? Like, you want the federal agents to leave so you can continue with the fraud? What is the end game up there?
Well, and that's so that's where I think the end game short answer is better oversight, better clarity, and better guidelines to operations. Because again, we talked about this last time, that I read the DOJ rule book on policy for or DHS, whatever it was, on policy, where to me, I read it to say officer should have gotten out of the way of the car based on his own, you know, based on the rules set forward.
All right, let's stop there and let's just talk about that. So one of the things that we talked about before, hindsight's 2020, and this is one of the times that hindsight's going to benefit me, in my opinion. One of the things that was said by everybody is like, he had no reason to go to that car. Like, in other words, the argument early on was he put himself in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think if you look at the video in hindsight, he is putting himself in that position to document what they were doing, which was blocking an ICE operation. Her actions made him transition away from documenting into more enforcement type of situation.
Well, so let's do this then. Let's circle back to this video, because I think this is a good example of, I'm gonna jump into the thing of, I'm gonna play the video and I'm gonna walk through what I see. Okay. Because we both watched the same video.
Okay.
And so this is the video put up on Fox News of the 3.5 minutes of the approach, minutes leading up, right? Mm-hmm. So this is this one here. Play. Cameron. Right. There we go. All right. So this is the video. Right off the bat. Oh, don't do that.
I'm sorry.
Right off the bat, we're looking down the street. You see all the operation is going on in front of you. I'm muting it because she's honking her horn and we just don't need to hear that, but she's honking her horn through all of this. So they're looking at the street right now.
Who's honking their horn?
I believe Renee is. I believe, or someone in the area is honking their horn.
So they're making their job. They're making their job more difficult.
They're making noise. Yeah.
I mean, would you agree it makes the job more difficult if people are being noisy?
Sure, but honking a horn again, like
I mean, it's a simple question. It makes their job more difficult.
Sure.
It's an escalation. Go ahead.
So this is happening down the street.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing blah, blah, blah. He's panning down, panning. That's a big jump.
Well,
to me, they just panned about 50 to 100 yards. Multiple houses down the road. So she is not right up on this operation as it was presented. This is what I'm seeing. She is she's a ways down the road. She's not right next to them.
Right.
Because they just panned 4 or 5 houses down the road.
Okay.
So we're here. She's sitting. She is blocking the road. I'm not arguing that that is not a violation of some kind, impeding the flow of traffic, all that. Not disagreeing. There's a big shark in someone's front yard. But
it's a totality of the circumstances, which means, yes, she's blocking the road, but not only is she blocking the road, she's also engaging in activities that in the past these agents have dealt with that brought violence.
Sure.
So continue.
So now we pan back. We're looking at the agents. They're all standing. At this point, everything seems relatively calm. They're standing.
But we're agreeing in an ICE operation, what they do is they take custody of somebody and leave and take them to a detention facility.
Yep. So it looks like whatever is happening in this area down here. Okay. And it looks like it's pretty well wrapping up. Like everyone's just milling about.
They're ready to leave.
They're ready to roll out.
Okay.
I would agree. So you see this black car is moving. This black car is moving. We pan back. There's a car waiting down the street.
Mm-hmm.
This is an ICE vehicle. Vehicle. I think that black car that just drove by, this SUV that's driving by, ICE vehicles.
Okay.
So as you're looking, so this guy comes by right here, drives in front of Renee. This black car is going in front of Renee. You can tell because they're on that side of the street. They're on the clear side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all working to exfiltrate, to use a term. There's the pickup truck that ends up rolling up on her. It's still well down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Some dude just got out of this vehicle. This guy.
Mm-hmm.
She's still. There aren't even to her yet. There are no ICE agents around her right now.
No, but she's blocking.
They're down the street, 3 houses.
Still blocking. You're asking me from a law enforcement standpoint. She's impeding what my.
Yes, she is in the road. I'm not at no point am I denying that she is creating an obstruction in the roadway.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're going here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here's this vehicle here is the one that the dude, if I understand this video, this is the vehicle that the officer that ends up shooting her gets out of.
Okay.
He goes.
All right. Hold on just a second. You want my analysis? This is considered a choke point. The time that you're most vulnerable is in your vehicle. Tons of cops have been killed in their vehicle. The most vulnerable time for you is to be bottlenecked in a certain situation. These ICE agents have taken fire in the past, and you have a single vehicle that is creating a bottleneck, which is extremely dangerous in any type of an environment. Continue.
Fair enough. I don't argue that point with you.
Okay.
So he goes. So this truck goes around behind. Look, you've got black car here going in front of Renee.
Mm-hmm.
Right, silver car here going behind Renee. She cannot move. Even if she's trying to get out of the way, there is no safe path for her to get out of the way because she's got a car going behind her and a car going in front of her. So she has to stay put in this moment. She cannot move.
Okay.
Car goes in front. That other car is still going behind. So even as we see, even as we see this sedan trying to leave, she still can't move because that SUV, that goldish, silverish SUV is currently behind her.
Okay.
White SUV leaving. black car leaving, another black car leaving, the pickup truck's working its way down the road. So all of these ICE vehicles are trying to leave. You now have her blocked here.
That's not blocked. They're trying
I'm saying that SUV is back to her passenger rear.
Right. And like right now, all she has to do is drive forward and leave. That's
correct.
All
but there are multiple vehicles moving towards her.
All she has to do is pull forward and leave. That's all. You got a bottleneck of people. You're leaving from a situation. You're in a choke point and you've got to move out of it.
Correct. I don't disagree. Where's the
pickup's right there, coming up there.
Yep. So she's sitting, she's trying to back up. So right as we pull up to that, right as we get to that, she is, hold on, go back 10 seconds. So watch as we cut back, she is backing up to seem, in my opinion, to be getting out of the way. She's backing up right there, adjusting. Someone's talking to her. She waves this guy by. This white car goes by, so she can't leave. She's now backed up. She goes to try and pull away. She moved, waved this car through because they moved. She waves this truck because just now what I saw was she was trying to move and two cars cut her off. Two cars drove in front of her, so she could not pull away without hitting them. So she waved them through. She then thinks, in my opinion, that this truck is probably going to do the same thing the two other officer vehicles just did while she was trying to leave. So she's waving him through as well. At this point, we are now caught up to the videos that we saw from the officer and from the close-up perspectives of these guys now getting out and approaching. She backs up, and now we're back to where we were. So what I saw in that video was, again, not disagreeing that she was impeding the flow of traffic. I totally get what you're saying about the choke point, not disagreeing with that either. But what I also saw was multiple officers going both in front of and behind her vehicle, limiting her ability to safely move. I saw multiple vehicles go in front of her, and as she's trying to leave, and she's waving them through because she's also trying to pull out. So where I look at this and I go, my perspective, what I feel the missed points in this conversation is that, is she in the wrong for being where she is or creating a situation? Arguably, yes. I'm not going to disagree. She's blocking the flow of traffic. She's all that stuff. But to sit and say, like, what I think is also missed is she does attempt to leave. There are other reasons why she was there longer than she needed to be because multiple vehicles drive in front of her. So
I'm going to stop you there. And one of the things that close-up video shows is she wasn't trying to leave because her passenger had got out of the vehicle to start filming ICE.
Yeah, she had let her out a while before.
Not a while before. When the officer gets out of that SUV and starts filming, that's when her wife gets out of the car.
Her wife was already out at that moment.
Go back to the video. They get out almost at the wife is out of the car, so she's not trying to leave. She has every opportunity to leave before all that happens. The wife gets out of the car, and then they start going back and forth with the officer that's filming it. It might not be immediately, but it's seconds between the time the wife gets out of the car and the agent gets out of his truck. The one that
the pickup truck people,
the other truck,
the SUV.
What I see from this, in my opinion, from a law enforcement standpoint, is she pushed past where she should have been over and over and over again. And finally they said, that's it. You're going to jail. They approach her and she's like, no, I'm not going to jail. And she tries to leave. I don't disagree. She made a bad decision. I mean, I think the decision that she made, it was one that was made out of chaos and out of panic and everything else. I mean, the fact she was leaving the way she was leaving, spinning wheels and everything else, is an indication of her mind wasn't in the right place because she had just left her wife on the side of the road and having, and so, like, from my standpoint, the problem in it is that it wasn't an example of like, hey, I'm just trying to leave, when I think a reasonable ICE agent would believe, like, these people are not leaving. You now have a pedestrian that got out of that vehicle that's walking around. We don't know what they're doing. And again, like this is not an environment where these agents are feeling secure, because like Minneapolis, the police department, who would normally deal with these people and say, hey, you need to move on, they are forcing people that have been identified by the left as these are the Gestapo, they disappear people and everything else, and give people the idea like, hey, you don't have to listen to ICE because they're part of the Trump agenda and everything else, which is bullshit. Like, no, you do have to listen to them. And if you don't listen to, like, obviously, like in a perfect world, the police department would step up and say, hey, we will provide a safe area for you to conduct your operations. We will have those interactions with those people. But ICE agents should not have to worry about their perimeter and actually where they're executing their operation. But they do. They're having to do all of it themselves. And therein lies the problem, particularly when you have an environment, in my opinion, where people have already said these people are bad, these people are Nazis, these people are this, and that's not who these people are. So anyway, I mean, we can talk more about that video. Anything else you want to wrap up with? I think it does have two different views on things. My biggest issue in this whole situation is we have a civil society. And if everybody one day decides, hey, I'm not going to pay attention to what the laws of the road are, it creates chaos. And I feel like the people that are protesting are not protesting trying to make changes. I feel like they are trying to interrupt what they feel like is an unlawful thing. The difference between that and past protests is there was actually a law involved. This isn't a law, and there's no recourse without the law, because you pointed out some people got erroneously kicked out of the country. A judge intervened and they were brought back. So,
well, and I think the important the stuff in all of these situations that I think gets missed or that I think is not addressed enough to me is the fact that I feel this administration is using our public servants as pawns for
no, he's just implementing a policy that he was elected to do. They're not pawns. I can tell you from working with these guys, they didn't like working under the previous administration where they just let people in. They are tasked with keeping the country safe, and they weren't allowed to do it for 4 years. And then before that, they weren't allowed to do it in the Obama administration. I was at a school where I had a ton of those guys around me, and they were very thankful for the first Trump administration. So these people are not pawns. They are people that are like, they're black and white. It is like, these are the laws. If I am tasked to enforce these laws, I will enforce them. Flip side of it is, if you have an administration that says catch and release, that's what they do. It's not what they believe. They don't believe it's best for the country, but you don't see them out protesting and rioting or anything else. They're like, no, we have to do our job. And I think to say that they're pawns is not a safe thing. I think if you look at what not what the administration's saying, look at what the Border Patrol Association and other people are saying that represent these agents. And those agents will say without a question, this country is safer now with the new administration than it has in the past. And I think the biggest question, and we can talk about it another time, is how we move from this, where we are right now, which is a broken system that is creating situations where people feel like they need to protest. And I think somebody needs to go out there and say, hey, it's not helping to call them pawns. It's not, and I'm not saying you said that to be anything other than that's what you look at. But I do think comparing them to the Iranian government that is killing protesters indiscriminately, to sit there and compare that, I think is a huge, like, I think back to the old school, like if you were on the playground, those would be fighting words if I was an ICE agent.
But I think the other consideration, though, that from the left is frustrating that I see is when someone tries to make a comparison, which I don't necessarily agree with the Iran-US comparison, so I'm going to backburner that one slightly, but there is a seeming demand from the right that if I'm going to make a comparison, it has to be a one-to-one comparison, equal level, or it doesn't count. It doesn't matter. It's not applicable. It can't, like, the seeming unwillingness of flexibility of saying, yes, these things are similar, and I can see how they might be, you
So
know,
give me one example of what you would like to see that is similar, like a one-on-one comparison.
Well, so that's the thing is I don't believe that there is a one-on-one comparison. It's when anyone brings up, health. Oh, well, in, gun control. Oh, well, in Australia, they've only had 2 shootings in 35. We aren't Australia. We're a different, you cannot make that one-to-one comparison, but you can look at the actions they took and some of the approaches and say, okay, how can we apply those to this situation? I've always stood by the side of being like, when someone tries to compare universal healthcare or whatever, oh, look what they do in Europe. We have states that are bigger than countries in Europe. We can't make those comparisons because we're 2 vastly different.
What issue do you think the right is failing on as far as one-on-one comparisons?
So this is gonna not please you, but I don't agree with calling Trump Hitler. I don't agree with calling what's happening now Nazis. I think that is insulting and devalues the atrocities that those people committed. They are not a one-to-one comparison at all.
Okay.
But I do think that you can, there's the saying, history doesn't always repeat itself, which I heard somewhere and I have now adopted, is history may not always repeat itself, but sometimes it rhymes. And there are aspects of things that I've seen happening that are kind of rhyming. For instance, this is a side tangent. Trump's obsession with taking Greenland, to me, rhymes with the annexation of Austria, because the justifications are, it's our realm of influence, it's in our hemisphere, it's to protect us from this, that, or the other. I'm not comparing him at all to Hitler. I am saying that the actions and the justification seem similar to the actions and justifications of taking Austria. I disagree with them in both cases.
But my question to you is it's one thing to say this is like, to me, I would agree if the actions were taking place. You know what I'm saying? Is that just a negotiation tactic that he uses? Is it no different than the negotiation tactic? For example, one-on-one comparison when, and I don't remember I think it was Iran, when President Obama said, if you use nuclear weapons, that is a red line. If you use biological weapons on your own people, that's a red line in the sand. And that's what Obama said. They still used them, but I do think that like from a one-on-one comparison is those are words. And in the same way, and he took actions, moved resources and everything else. I would agree if we take overt actions, and again, it's checks and balances.
Right there is exactly.
Are we saying, is the left saying that they believe, maybe I'll eat these words, but is the left saying that they think that President Trump is going to arbitrarily decide, independent of congressional approval and everything else, and actually be able to take over another country without any pushback from the courts, without any pushback from Congress? And I think that's
so his own words were,
but I'm not saying would he do it. I understand that you believe 100% that he would do it, but even the example that you gave earlier of something that you said that the administration did wrong, I think we forget how good our founding fathers did. You can argue why they ended up in that situation. But at the end of the day, they created a system of some pretty good checks and balances, even in the chaos of well over 250 years later. We still find ourselves in a situation where I said that wrong. It's this year, it's 250, right? Yeah. Almost 250 years. And so from my standpoint, I think it's a pretty good indication that it survived 250 years with the checks and balances. And I understand it's easy to say, because I've heard Joe Biden gets elected, the country is going to disintegrate.
It happens every
I read an article the other day.
Obama was going to be the death of the nation, and we were all going to be in war.
We do have checks and balances. What I would like to put out, and you can end it with yours, is let's utilize the system that we have in place, the checks and balances that we have in place. And instead of fear mongering on both sides, let's use the checks and balances we have. If you feel like the Trump administration is not doing a good job, support people that are going to go against them 100% of the time, or agree with what you have to say and elect them into a position where they can stop what he's doing. Because the fact is, it is like, when I think about it, and I think about the fact that, like, people piss and moan about it, and they're like, well, that was a Biden importee. And that's the whole point of this country, is we go through these flows, and we do have judges on both sides that are appointed. And that's the whole point of the whole system. The whole system is set up to check and balance. And so one thing I'll say is, everybody that's out there going, oh my gosh, it's the end of no, our democracy is working. It is really, really messy right now, but it's working. Go ahead.
Well, and I think for me, my view on things is one of, for better or worse, proactivity, which is, just with the Greenland thing, it's like, when he says, I'd love to make a deal, but we can do it the easy way. I'd love to make a deal the easy way, but if we have to do it the hard way, we can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, when I look at something, it's, if all your buddies are telling you, hey, that girl you're going out on a date with, like, she's got some red flags,
right?
Maybe walk away from this one. And then you still choose to date her, and then she burns all your clothes on the lawn. You saw that you were given a heads up that might happen. And so for me, I look at it and I go, why do we need to wait for something to go potentially past a point of no return, if there were indicators that we're heading that direction ahead of time, that we could try to stopgap before we got there? And
the answer to that question is the democracy that we have. A duly elected president, elected by a majority of the population, and the electoral board, the electoral Congress, or whatever it's called, the electoral college. Congress college. He's duly elected. If you disagree, he gets,
no, absolutely.
And so that's the thing, is I think we're thinking, well, we're creating an environment where people feel like it is urgent that they do something. And the urgency could be, go out there and start supporting people and go door to door, knocking on doors and saying, hey, I found somebody. If you agree with me and this thing isn't working, then I'll walk you around to my neighborhood, the person that's running for office, and say, hey, this is something that will impede what I think is going terribly wrong. If you feel like it's going really good, then find people that support it. And I think that's the whole point and I think we get it wrong too. I think it's asinine to sit there and say it's an activist judge, we need to impeach him. That's bullshit. That is a check and balance. It has been a balance. It's going to continue to be a balance. And to call it like that is 100% wrong.
I appreciate it.
There's a separation of powers. But this chaos that we create, there are a lot of people, like the 1%, like, damn them, let's go out there and, like, make this our country. It is our country.
Yeah.
We have the ability to go out and make it better, and let's do it. So
yeah, no, I agree with all that. I think that's a great place to end this one.
No, I think it is too, buddy. I appreciate it as always, and I hope you have a good week and have a safe week.